menaiju.
Hi everyone, welcome back for another video. Today, basically my Kona Electric is in for its second service at Motor Vogue in Norwich. So I've coordinated with them to be able to have access to this Hyundai Ioniq, the 2020 model with 38 kilowatt hours of battery size, the increased range, and I've basically got it for the day. It's going to take quite a while to get the BMS update done and the sat-nav software changed and the service and all those sort of things. So pretty much I've got the day with this car, which is fantastic because not everyone gets electric cars as loaners. It has taken, shall we say, 3 attempts at convincing them that I only drive electric cars now, so please can they coordinate for the car to be serviced when one's available. And that's worked really well. Motor Vogue have been very, very good. Since losing my dealer where I bought the car from, the Kona Electric, that's SLM Hyundai, they've given up their Hyundai franchise. Motor Vogue have taken over, and so far so good. They seem very, very good. The service is good, and we'll see what the car comes back like. Yeah, there are some reports online that some people aren't getting their car back as it should be. They haven't updated the software correctly, and bits are missing. The map updates haven't been done, or the software hasn't been updated, and the worst ones, well, the car doesn't pass the tests for the high voltage battery, so they don't get the car back at all. So fingers crossed the car comes back, fingers crossed everything's done, there's nothing to moan about, and Motor Vogue have done a fantastic job. But this video, it's basically going to be a review of the Ioniq 38 kilowatt hour. It's my first opportunity to drive the car, and I guess from a Kona Electric owner, much of it should be familiar, but it's really, really good to be able to describe the differences. For somebody that's interested in either the Ioniq or the Kona and can't quite make up their mind, you know, or other cars in the Kia Hyundai range, perhaps these differences will make a difference to your thoughts and your decisions. But I'm quite surprised how many differences there are, both in the look and feel. And it's everywhere. It's from the top of the dash here, above the speedo. It looks like leather. It looks like stitched leather over the top, but it's actually plastic, which is... It sort of looks okay until you touch it, and then it just feels wrong because it's actually plastic. It's fake, not fake leather, fake leather. And I'm not so keen on that. At first sight, it actually looked okay, and I thought, oh, that's a nice difference. But afterwards, not so. The steering wheel is identical, apart from the shape. It's this D shape, and it's very, very good. So all the buttons on the steering wheel look the same. Steering wheel looks and feels the same apart from that D shape, which is actually quite nice. I quite like it on the Ioniq. The paddles are the same, the switchgear for the lights and the wipers are all the same, the cruise control buttons are the same, telephone operation, that's all the same. The buttons at the side of the door that control the windows and the door mirrors, they look the same, but the buttons, well, they just feel slightly different. So there's different modification on those same buttons. And if I move around the car and try to describe the differences that I see inside, we've got memory seats. So yeah, everyone would love electric memory seats on their Kona Electric, but we have electric memory seats on the driver's side only for the Ioniq, but not the Kona. But in the Kona, we've got electrically operated drivers and passenger seats, whereas in the Ioniq, it's electric only for the driver. It's manual. Even on this Premium SE, it's manual over on the passenger side. So, you know, you win some with, with one thing and then you lose it on the other. Then you've got the center console gear here, you know, the drive button, the park button, and the reverse button, and neutral, etc. They're just different buttons, different looks and feel, but they do effectively the same. What this black plastic knob thing is, or holder, or is it a palm rest, you know, whatever that's for, I have no idea. But the storage areas look similar in capacity, but different in shape, and that's because this center area that goes between the drive button, reverse button, etc., and then up to the media display and the sat-nav screen, that's not all joined up. There's a hollow area here for storage, and that's a little bit better than the Kona, because the Kona you have to reach under and it's really awkward to access the USB ports that's underneath there. I do notice here in the Ioniq there are two 12-volt sockets on the front, where in the Kona there's only one. So we've got a USB for media and for the Waze connection, etc. at the front on the Ioniq. That's the same as the Kona, but that's inside the flip-up area, which has the wireless charging in the Kona. But there's only one 12-volt socket in the Kona. There's also another USB, which is normally in this underneath hidden area in the Kona, but it's actually in the center armrest area on the Ioniq. So that's a slight difference. The biggest changes, I guess, are the screens. The car makes different beep sounds as it starts up. The display is different. The battery gauge size is different. The regen levels is different. We've got 3 bars to indicate 1, 2 and 3 levels, and it also shows level 1, 2 and 3 as well. So the display of what regen level you're in works the same on the paddles, but the display is different. The media display in here, this is the upgraded version, so it's the 10-inch display, but it's all gloss black. And yes, I like the display better, the width of the display, and I like how you can configure to have different sections doing different things. I like all of that. And then there's this button that you press at the side of the screen to the right, and then the battery information appears there regardless of what you've got showing already. So that's really, really nice. The display area, I think, is improved. All of the piano black side to it, well, do you know, I find it a bit of a distraction. I think it's going to be a bit of a Marmite thing. For some people, they'll think it looks more high-tech than the old version of the Kona, and they'll prefer this more modern, wider screen look to it. I find it a little bit more distracting. It's more in my face. And actually the heating controls that are below, they're all digital. To change the fan speed, you touch the touch sensitive button and it changes the fan speed. I prefer the rotary dial. I guess something that I do occasionally, I turn the volume up when I want to turn the fan speed up. I get the knobs around the wrong way in the Kona electric, so I suppose that avoids that here, because it's the rotary control for the volume above, and it's a digital touch sensitive fan speed below. The reflections on this piano black are quite significant. I've struggled to get good photos here in the Ioniq compared to the Kona, both of the dash and of the media display, and it's because there are so many reflections. So personally, I sort of really like the new improved 10-inch display because of the display technology, but the presentation of it I don't think is as good as the Kona. There's too many reflections, and it's too obvious. It doesn't integrate as well. It stands out with this black against the grey. The Ioniq interior is extremely grey in here. If I'm not mistaken, it's a slightly lighter shade of grey as well. What else can I see? There's a power button on the rear view mirror. The rear view out of the mirror is a little bit more restricted than the Kona, so rear visibility is better in the Kona. But that button goes along with this SOS button above here where the lights are. That must be all the Blue Link system that this car has, whereas my Kona, the original Kona version, doesn't have it. The 2020 version does. The differences just keep coming all the time. Let's carry on with the seats. So the seats in their electric operation look very much the same, but they feel very, very different. There seems to be less side bolster support. I roll a little bit more around corners. That's probably a combination of the seat and also the suspension. But the seat feels harder. It's not as thick foam. It's not as soft a seat. So on a longer distance journey, you're more likely to get bum ache in this car, I would suspect. But yeah, they are really, really comfy seats. Don't get me wrong, very, very comfortable. But the Kona, I think, has better seats, both because it's electrically operated on both sides. All it needs is the memory side to it. What else have we got? The fuel filler flap. There's a button down here underneath where the vest button is. That's what opens the charge flap on the outside of the car, which is on the passenger side, in the UK anyway. That's the difference from fueling the Kona at the front. So I guess some people prefer to charge from the front or the back for accessing the chargers, say rapid chargers, rather than the side, because there might be tighter space on getting the car in or out. Something that made me laugh though, I saw it online just the other day in the Ioniq forum on Facebook, saying that there's a description on the inside of the charge flap saying holder, and there's a couple of plastic areas which looks like it's a holder for the cap. But this person on Facebook couldn't find out how on earth to fit the cap over this holder, and I've tried and no, I can't find out either. I can't work out how to hang the Type 2 socket cap that comes off the car to hang it onto the flap whilst you're actually charging. But I have found that if I connect that cap onto the rubber socket of my Type 2 cable, then I can hold it together and just pop it into the charge slot, as you can see here, rather than have it dangle flopping all over the paintwork of the car. But on a rapid charger, well, you don't have that extra cap. So yeah, that seems a bit of an oversight really, some sort of design problem where they've used the wrong flap, or it's just not obvious. I mean, for Ioniq owners out there, if you're watching this, does it really not work at all? There's nowhere to hold that cap. Is it a design problem, or am I just being daft like this other person on Facebook was and couldn't find out how to actually make it work? Anyway, more differences. What have we got? There's some air vents in the back seats area. A little bit more space in the back seat area, I guess, is worth mentioning as well. The armrest here I quite like on the driver's side. It's a nice shape and design with a hand pocket. That's all quite nice. But the obvious differences are more the material differences on how the car looks as more of a aerodynamic car, the typical hybrid looking car, the Ioniq, versus the Kona, which is a crossover SUV. The Kona has bigger tyres, bigger wheels, 17-inch wheels and 225 profile tyres. On the Ioniq, it's 205 profile tyres on 16-inch wheels. And that's probably part of what gives the car a light feel and a little bit more economy as well, because the steering is lighter. As you're manoeuvring the car, there's just less feel, there's less dynamic feel to the steering of the car. It's a little bit more less sporty, more sloppy. But you know, I don't want to diss the Ioniq, because it still feels good. It's just a different feel. It's a softer, more laid back feel. There's, let's say, the power steering is more powerful, and therefore the steering feels lighter in your hands. And as you go around corners, the car rolls just a little bit more than the Kona. Now, I did see a video, I think, who did that video? Was it EV Nick in Derbyshire? He was saying the Ioniq suspension was better than the Konas. And I guess that depends on what you like from the suspension, whether you like it sporty and taut or whether you like it soft and comfortable. This is definitely softer here in the Ioniq. It rides the bumps a lot better, so if you hit a pothole or go over speed bumps, you'll probably go over it faster in the Ioniq than you do the Kona. The Kona you have to slow down for speed bumps a lot more because it does jar, so it's more brittle feeling. But that brittleness gives you a more taut drive, and it rolls less round corners. It makes it feel a little bit more sporty. And I guess maybe that side also helps with the front end being a little bit more connected in your hands. So the car does, in my opinion, the Kona, handle better than this Ioniq. But it depends what you want from a car, doesn't it? It depends whether you want that soft, comfortable, luxurious ride that covers the bumps better. Yeah, going over speed bumps is a pain in the Kona, and it is better in this Ioniq. Efficiency wise, well, I did a test a while ago with Justin. Hi Justin. We took his Ioniq out for a drive and I followed him, and we found we only had about a 0.2 mile per kilowatt hour difference between the two cars over a journey. And you know, the Ioniq was definitely more efficient. This was an older version Ioniq, but the Kona was close behind. So I've been very interested to see how this Ioniq compares. And my journey back from the dealership is very, very similar to the best ever efficiency I've had out of the Kona, which was 7.2 miles per kilowatt hour immediately after a rapid charge, and then driving these 7 to 8 miles back home. and 7.2 was my best. Well, this Ioniq beat that easily. What was it, 7.5 I think? I haven't got the dash on at the moment, but I think it was 7.5. But driving back, the efficiency was showing at 8 point something and 9 point something, and I never see that in the Kona. So it's very, very clear that this car slips through the air a lot better. And I did notice that on one area where sometimes I'll put the car into 0 regen, so coasting, and I'll coast down the hill and let it ride back up the hill. Then I did exactly the same in this Ioniq, at the same sort of speed, same sort of regen at regen 0. And this car went way beyond where I'd normally go back on throttle again and have to drive the car. It just kept going a lot more. So coasting in this car and how it slips through the air is clearly where it gets its extra efficiency from. I guess the regen is very similar, but it is very aerodynamic and it coasts really, really well. What else have I noticed in this car so far? Well, one of the things is this has an extremely annoying rattle or creak coming from the back area. So I'm going to open the boot up and see if I can investigate and find out exactly what that is. Because if I owned this car and I had that creak, that would have to be fixed. It drives me nuts. So anyway, let's have a look from the boot area and see whether I can actually find out what it is. Well, lo and behold, that just seems to be the seat. So moving the seat in the 60/40 split fold position and putting it back, the creak's gone away. So it's the leatherette of the seat rubbing against the side, and that was giving me the horrible noise. Why it would happen in one moment and not another, I have no idea, but I guess that's easily fixed with a little bit of polish or grease or something to stop that creak from occurring. I've always loved the idea of this Ioniq because of its efficiency. It's nice to know that you've got the most efficient EV out there, and you can get incredible levels of efficiency whether you're hypermiling or just driving economically. Or if you're not, if you're just driving normally, even up and down the motorways, this thing really gets great efficiency. So yeah, I've always had a hankering for it. I've always fancied owning one of these, and it was always the car. Should I have bought that instead of the Kona? Because I would have really enjoyed the efficiency. Yeah, I like efficiency from the car. It's not just all about long range. But having now driven this, even just for a short journey, I'm going to take this for a longer drive on the circuit that I was using on the Kona to run down the battery in a previous test that I was doing. I'm going to take this out on that same circuit, so I've got a like-for-like measurement of efficiency and see how we get on and see whether I can get this beyond the 7.5 miles per kilowatt hour and maybe get it into the 8s. Be interesting to see if we can do that. But how do I feel about the way the car drives? And I guess I'd get used to the charge flap being on the passenger side at the side. I guess I'd get used to the reflections on the dash, and I'd like the benefit of the bigger screen. This also looks like it has a rear view camera view item, so that I can actually have on the screen the view out of the camera at the back, not just while you're reversing, but while you're driving. So I'll have to try that out later as well. But I don't know whether I'd really like this car. That softness and difference in how it drives. Yeah, there's another thing that I've noticed. When you're reversing the car or pulling away to start with, the Kona just seems to hold you better. It doesn't lurch forward. It's all smooth. Whereas this Ioniq feels so much more sensitive on the throttle that on and off, it's just a bit more lurchy at very low speeds and a bit soft. So I don't know how to really describe it, but the touch and feel on the accelerator and how it pulls forward and how it reverses, it's just smoother in the Kona and you feel more in control. I'm not sure of the words to describe it, but that throttle response I think is a negative. It's too sensitive and goes against how it feels on the steering. The steering feels light and everything about the car feels light and gentle and soft, whereas the accelerator movement's not sharp, but it's It's just a little bit too much at low speeds. It's really difficult to describe, but if you're going to test the two, try it out and let me know whether it's just my sensitivities or whether there really is a difference there in some sort of throttle mapping or how it holds at low speeds, because that just felt different to me and not as enjoyable as the Kona Electric. And I guess so far from this video, what I can say is you would expect the Ioniq to be the same. You'd expect everything, the switchgear and the feel of everything to be the same. You know, like the seats, they look the same, they got the same specs, but it doesn't. It feels different. And the way the car drives feels different. Regen feels the same. Performance, so far I've tried it a little bit. I haven't really had a good go in the car yet, but the Kona feels faster. So yeah, there's just, I guess if you like your cars soft, efficient and smooth, then the Ioniq is the car for you, especially with its great efficiency. But if you want more comfortable seats for a longer journey and you prefer higher performance and you like it to be a better handling car where you feel more engaged with the driving, then the Kona is for you, I guess. One of the things that I haven't mentioned so far is the boot space. I guess that's important to some people, and effectively it's just a completely different shape. It's more shallow and less usable here in the Ioniq, but it's longer, so actually it's more usable, depending on what you want to put in it. So I would say it's horses for courses. I prefer the Kona with the higher height, because that suits for having our dog in the back a little bit better. And you can't put as much in this Ioniq because of that slope of the roof and catching the glass. So I guess it is just horses for courses and what you prefer to put in your boot. But for me, the Kona with the smaller boot is actually more practical. One thing I notice about the boot lid though, here's my attention to detail again. I've checked out the opening and shutting of the boot. And yes, the Ioniq boot lid opens and shuts easily. It shuts and clicks shut properly all on its own, even from the most shallowest of heights, whereas the Kona takes a bit of a slam sometimes, doesn't it? And you definitely have to adjust the back of the boot to make it fit well, otherwise you really have to slam the boot lid shut. So the hydraulics and the weight of the boot lid and how it closes, way better here in the Ioniq. So really that's sort of first observation differences. I haven't gone into the manual so far to look at all of the differences. The lane follow assist and lane keep assist seems the same. Rear cross alert looks the same. The cruise control system looks the same. Although I did notice one difference driving home in this, that even though I'm not using cruise control, when you come to stop at some traffic lights and then traffic moves on ahead of you, you get an alert. You get another bong and it tells you that cars ahead have moved off. It doesn't do that in the Kona, not with the settings that I have on it anyway. So is that a option on the Ioniq or is that standard? I did see that there's an active warning option somewhere in the menus. Maybe that's what it's for. But that traffic moving ahead message I've only ever seen when you use the cruise control on the Kona and you come to a complete stop as well, and then you let the Kona restart the journey, say you're in traffic, etc. I've currently got the Ioniq on charge, so yep, I'm charging the Motorvogue's Ioniq and adding some battery power in it, and I wanted to basically test whether this Ioniq 2020 model, the 38 kilowatt hour, has any issues charging with the Zappi charger, because I know the 2020 model of the Kona does have some problems. So anyway, I'm going to try that out in the fast Eco and Eco Plus mode and see whether from solar energy it can dynamically charge, and use those minimum charge settings to get the charge rate down to what, in reduced mode it should be 900 watts and around 600 watts in minimum mode. So I want to see whether it works with all of those things as well. So if I forget I'm a Kona owner for a moment and forget the comparison between the two, what's this like as an EV to drive? Well, it's pretty good. It's pretty fantastic. It's well made, apart from the squeak in the back, which I didn't like. It's very well featured, lots of safety features, lots of tech. It's very, very efficient, drives really well and really smoothly, covers the bumps well. Seats are really comfortable, both air conditioning and ventilated seats for cooling as well, the same as the Kona. That's awesome. I think you would like this car. So if I was looking at buying a car in a similar price range, I guess you're talking Zoes. You know, top of the range Zoes are going to be similar prices to this Ioniq in premium spec. It's probably a little bit more money in premium SE, but you get a lot more car for your money in this Ioniq. If I was given the choice between a Zoe and this, it's this every day. You know, even if this doesn't have as good a range, it doesn't make any difference. This is a way better car. If you know, what else would you be comparing it to? For £30,000, you know, 28 to £30,000, depending on the model. I guess a Leaf is actually more expensive, but I'd have this every day over a Leaf. Even over the Leaf 62, I'd have this Ioniq. The only cars that I guess you might compare this to is, haven't Kia brought out the e-Niro now with a 39 kilowatt hour battery? So, and then you've got the MG ZS as well. So if you want the bigger SUV style, then you've got some options. Maybe this would compare to the new MG5 that's coming out with the estate version. And the MG5 is probably a little bit cheaper, I think. I'm not sure if the price is out in the UK, but I'd guess the MG5 is going to be cheaper than this Ioniq. So I guess it's based on price and features and look and feel and what you want from the car. I'm starting to get an opinion about EV ownership that the longer I have it, the less it's just about the size of the battery and how much range you have. But when you're first buying an electric car, then you're focused on just how far will the thing go, how much range will I get, and because you're a little bit apprehensive of how it'll fit into your lifestyle and how much you're going to have to keep charging it all the time. In the Kona Electric, for example, with a 64 kilowatt hour battery, I hardly have to charge the thing, you know, once a week, once a fortnight. It just doesn't get charged very often at all because it's got such a big battery and my mileage is quite low that I've always got 100, 150, 200 miles of range. It just seems to hold that range forever. I guess as soon as you start to have a car with a smaller battery like this one, you're having to top it up more and charge it more. So that daily routine differs on when you have a smaller battery. So let's leave this video for the moment. I'm going to go out later and do that other test, as I said, and I'll give an update on that. But first impressions, that's all I can say this video is. First impressions of the difference between my experience in a Kona Electric and what I'm experiencing in this Ioniq 2020 version at 38 kilowatt hour. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope that wasn't too long. I hope it wasn't too boring. I hope I've edited it down so it's quite succinct, because I know I waffle on loads, don't I? As always, thanks for watching, everyone. If you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe. It really does help me understand how many people are watching my videos regularly, and of course it helps support the channel. So thanks, everyone, and see you again soon. Bye for now.